Good afternoon. It is a Sunday here in G Vegas, a little town outside of Beantown. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast, episode 26, May 26th, 2019. That's a coincidence, right? Episode 26, May 26th, 2019. We are to discuss comedian Eddie Murphy, legendary comedian. As always, Funny Like a Clown podcast is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce for the spicy, sweet, savory taste of game time. There is only one G Vegas available at gvegas.webs.com. And to discuss legendary comedian Eddie Murphy, I have on the phone comedian out of Winchendon, Mass, Bill Slemmer. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Dennis. Pleasure to be here, my friend.
How things treating you in Winchendon, Mass?
Actually, I am in, don't get jealous, I'm actually in New Jersey.
Well, you're calling from Jersey. You're away for the long weekend here, huh?
I am away for a long weekend, yep. We have a little shore house down here in the Tuckerton, New Jersey area. So, my wife
beers and barbecue. I'm jealous now. You're right.
Don't get jealous.
Beers and barbecue don't get no better. I got to go to a wedding later today, so that's how good I'm doing. So,
there you go.
What are you going to do?
Beautiful down here, nice sunny, 80 degrees, nice little breeze off the bay.
There you go. So what makes you such a big Eddie Murphy fan?
You know what? He relates to everybody. You know, like, you watch Eddie Murphy and, you know, no matter what race you are or religion you are, he relates to everybody. Just a funny guy, you know? He's
a likable personality for sure. I mean, he's had a storied career between stand-up and movies and everything, but out of his whole career, do you got a favorite memory of him, whether it's a routine or a movie or...
Yeah, you know what? I very much enjoy the Beverly Hills Cops movies that he's done.
One of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, he's just I just love those movies. It's just, you know, he's kind of like a wise ass, you know.
Yeah, when he first started out, he was from the street, you know, and he was really they called it street smart, which I thought was good. But I guess the two specials that were from our time that we grew up on were Delirious and Raw. What do you remember most about Delirious and Raw?
Well, the Delirious one, just the beginning, he comes out, he's got that like red leather outfit on.
Yeah.
And just the opening lines were just funny as shit. He's like, he's talking about, you know, how he's got a couple rules when he's on stage, and his first line is he does what the faggot's checking out his ass.
Don't stare at my ass. That's why he's walking and moving quick. So
right?
Don't get a long stare, right?
You know, so that was pretty funny. He does a lot of impressions.
Right.
In Delirious, where, you know, and he does an excellent Michael Jackson. I mean, it's just...
Sure, that was one of his close friends, Michael Jackson. Yeah.
So he does a lot of the impressions when he's doing Delirious.
That was the first album where, I mean, that me and my friends really got into heavy, where, you know, every conversation would lead to a quote from that album. We'd answer each other's questions with a quote from that album, but... I'd listened to other comedians, but that was the first mainstream comedy album that really you got into big.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's I don't know, I kind of caught it recently because I knew we were going to discuss Eddie Murphy. I mean, Delirious was out in, like, I think, 83.
Yeah.
So that's how long ago it's been. So I actually went on YouTube and started catching some of the routines just to refresh my memory. And
all classic stuff you remember.
This guy was he was funny, man. You know, he was just awesome.
Now, what do you remember about Raw? Because I remember now Raw, which was very risky at the time, but I mean, he's one of the few comedians that released a comedy special at the movie theaters, where, you know, you had to go to a movie theater and get it. Where most of them, you know, VHS or a comedy album, and there hasn't been a comedian that did that until Kevin Hart which is just recently, was popular enough to actually release a comedy movie at the movie theaters. What do you remember about Raw?
Basically, you know, he talks about marriage a lot.
Yeah.
Raw, and he was talking about, I think it was Johnny Carson, in fact, how at the time I think he was getting divorced, and how his wife was getting half of everything that he owned. And, you know, he's like, you know, what bitch is worth $1.5 million?
Yeah, right. You don't do nothing if you're rich. You don't cook. You don't clean. All you do is fuck. Is all you do.
Like, your job is just to have sex with your husband.
Yeah.
That's your job.
You fill out your W-2 at the end of the year. I fuck my husband. That's it.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, it was... comical, but let's see. He was a regular cast member of Saturday Night Live from 1980 to 1984. He was ranked number 10 on Comedy Central's 100 greatest comedians of all time. Now, what do you think of that ranking, number 10?
That's probably about right.
I did. I thought he was higher myself, but
top 10, maybe top 5, maybe even.
Yeah, I thought that too until they started kicking out some of the legends like Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Lenny Bruce and Woody Allen, and a few weren't from our time, but they're definitely, should be in the top 5,
Right, yeah, as far as, in our generation,
Right.
Now, I think a big thing with Saturday Night Live, too, is at the time, I think it was 1980 when he got on, there was no other cast members on that show. I mean, he carried that show.
He was,
I mean, at that time, I think Lorne Michaels had just left, and it just changing producers and writers, and they had, it lost its steam from the 70s.
It lost its edge very much, yeah. They actually, now, who was it? Was it him and, was it Joe Piscopo? Because they ended up firing the entire cast. The only two they kept was him, and I think it was Joe Piscopo was the only two they kept.
Yep, exactly. They were the only two kept.
And they fired everybody else. That's how unfunny the show became, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty much him, and his characters, like Gumby. Gumby was freaking hilarious.
I am Gumby, damn it.
Gumby down with the cigar,
Yeah.
They did Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
Yeah, right. Well, Mr. Rogers in the ghetto.
Shit. Yep.
Let's see.
Yeah, his characters were definitely top notch,
They were definitely, yeah, he stood out. But let's see, he's known as an actor, comedian, and singer. He was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for 48 Hours, the Beverly Hills Cop series, Trading Places, and The Nutty Professor. In 2007, he won a Golden Globe. Nominated. I'm tongue twister. 2007, he won a Golden Globe, and he was also nominated for an Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actor in his portrayal of singer of James Thunder in Dreamgirls. Now, did you see Dreamgirls or no?
I did not. Did you?
That was one I didn't see. I guess I was a little past our time when he did that. But, I mean, do you believe that of all 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cop, all the stuff we grew up on, and it finally took James Thunder to get the guy a major award? I mean...
Right. I mean, who would have thought like Beverly Hills Cop or even Trading Places,
Yeah, I know. I guess you got to pay your dues, though. It don't matter how big you are, they're going to make you pay your dues before they finally. It's more of a achievement award, for what he did. I think,
He just rocked like the 80s and 90s. I mean, even though he's 2000s with his movies,
Sure. Let's see.
It was busy as hell.
Yeah, he never slowed down, and as you know, we're comics. If you slow down, you lose your edge a little bit. You got to try and keep busy anyway.
Yep.
Let's see. Murphy's work also included voiceover in films, including Thurgood Stubbs in the PJs, Donkey in Shrek, the Chinese Dragon Mushu in Disney's Mulan. So he also did some voiceover work in cartoons and stuff. You got kids? Did you see any of the cartoons? Or
Shrek, though.
What's that?
He's legendary for the Donkey on Shrek.
Yeah, Shrek, just the whole movie in general, just when no matter what you did, it was one of those, everybody had a good thing in it, right? Now, some of the later films that he did, he played multiple roles. I mean, where he played more than one character in a scene. Do you remember some of those?
I know Coming to America was one of them.
Yeah, that was one of them. Coming to America, Vampire in Brooklyn, The Nutty Professor, Bowfinger, The Adventure of Pluto's and Nash, Norbit and Meet Dave. I remember the Nutty Professor. I think he was sitting around a table, and there was like 7 or 8 people at the table, and he played like 6 of them, and the only one was a little fat kid there that played himself, but he played every other character at the table.
Yes.
I mean, that's just
shows his expansiveness of what he can do,
It's an amazing scene, yeah, I know. So, I mean, I did a local TV show, The Comedy Kitchen, which I had you on, and one of the later episodes, I actually tried that with some green screen work. I had myself as the host, and I had my character, the child support superhero, come on in costume, and it actually came out looking like we were 2 different people, and I made a joke it was my brother, and now I'm walking around town like, you got a twin brother? It's like they don't realize the magic of TV. I'm like, no, I don't have a twin brother. It was a joke, but...
That actually worked for you, huh?
Yeah, it was a lot of work though compared to a regular episode. I respect him for the amount of work to do 7 different characters. I mean, I did 2, and it was 10 times the work as a regular episode, so that was kind of cool. Let's see. Well, go ahead.
He was getting paid to do that, so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's doing better than me, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But well, talking about being paid, as of 2014, Murphy's films have grossed over $3.8 billion in the U.S. and Canada, and $6.6 billion worldwide. Can you imagine those figures? I mean, how much money do you figure this guy's got in his bank account?
Exactly right.
I mean, even if you got 10% of that, you're a millionaire 10 times over. I don't even. Those are just astonishing figures, you know.
He's probably worth it though, you know.
Yeah, 2015 is.
Other people are getting.
His films made him the 6th highest grossing actor in the U.S. Can you remember 6th all-time grossing actor in the United States? Now, this ain't just for comedy. This is all acting right there. So, I mean, that's
exactly
showed you how much money this guy's made. It's just unreal. 2015, Murphy was awarded the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor by the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. So, it's always good to get recognized by your peers. But I heard he did a lot for charity, too. He donated like $100,000 to the Screen Actors Guild when they were on strike. So, it's always good to give back, you know, when you're at the top of your game.
Yeah, exactly. He seems like one of those kind of people too, you know. Like if you get to know him, he'd probably be like your best friend hanging out, you know.
Right. Now, here's one that I remember was Harlem Nights. Did you see Harlem Nights?
I think I did.
Okay, because he credited Richard Pryor and Red Fox as 2 of the guys who influenced him, and he actually brought him in to do a movie with him. So that's always cool when you get to work with your heroes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know you opened up for Steve Sweeney once. What was it like opening for like one of the top comics in Boston for you?
It was, you know, it was incredible. It was a good rush. I mean,
something you never would have dreamed you'd do, right?
Obviously Steve Sweeney, he'll load the place for you.
Yeah.
The place was packed. You know, obviously there to see Steve Sweeney, but you got the opportunity to, go out in front of one of the largest crowds you can get out to, and hopefully do a good job, and kind of, he was actually very personal. Actually, I was kind of surprised. I thought he'd be a little standoffish, but he was very personal, and he liked my set, which was cool, which made me feel good because somebody that's been around doing the business for a while saying you did a good job.
Right. You get to work with your heroes. That's always cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've been there. You've done it.
Yeah,
right?
I love Sam Kinison, and he passed away, and I would always love to open for him, but, I mean, his best friend was Carl LeBove in his opening act, and I always said I could open for Carl, and I flew up to Alaska, and I got to open for Carl, and we stayed at the same guy's house. I was staying right with him, and we were out drinking beers on the front lawn one night, and I just kicked back in my chair. I'm like, I'm on someone's front lawn drinking beers with Carl LeBove. Are you freaking kidding? I had posters of this guy on my wall as a kid, and I'm sitting here sipping beers on the front lawn with him, But anyway, back to Eddie Murphy here. As we mentioned, Saturday Night Live, he played a grown-up version of Buckwheat. Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, where that was Mr. Rogers in the ghetto version, basically. Gumby, as you mentioned, the catchline, I am Gumby, damn it. I guess the one tarnish on his career, I don't know if you've seen it now, he did The Golden Child, and that really flopped. Did you happen to see that?
I did see that one.
What did you think of The Golden Child?
I didn't think it was that bad. I wouldn't say it was a flop.
Yeah, it was really criticized by people. But, they said Eddie Murphy, as you mentioned earlier, he was really wise, and he was street smart, they called it. His movies were street smart. And I noticed it with the Beverly Hills Cop series. In the third one, it wasn't even close to as funny as the first 2. And he lost his street edge. He really went Hollywood, Remember the old Rocky movies where Rocky lost the eye of the tiger because he went so Hollywood? It's like, Eddie Murphy wasn't from the streets anymore. He was a rich guy, and it really showed in his later films, I thought, that he wasn't a street guy anymore. He was a different guy. He really got criticized for it. But, I mean, out of his movie career, I mean, if you have one bad movie out of all the ones he's done, you're still doing pretty good,
Yeah, he's had a few. I mean, he did Haunted Mansion. I don't remember that one. That was kind of, okay. It wasn't great.
Right.
Did Dr. Dolittle, which people really seemed to like. I thought that was just okay.
Yeah, it was a very different him as compared to his earlier stuff that he did, as compared to 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop, where he was a wise ass punk, and now he's like an old man kind of goofing around type thing, you know?
Exactly. I think that was what his strong suit was, just being kind of, like you said, cocky.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Let's see, filmmaker Spike Lee criticized Murphy for not using his status to help other black actors. But I mean, you didn't know it at the time, which I'll mention some names here, and you didn't know him at the time that he gave breaks to, but now they're huge stars. Damon Wayans, he was in Beverly Hills Cop. Halle Berry and Martin Lawrence were in his movie Boomerang. Samuel L. Jackson and Cuba Gooding was in Coming to America. Dave Chappelle was in The Nutty Professor, and Chris Rock was in Beverly Hills Cop. So at the time that he gave these guys breaks, you didn't know any of them. Now they're big stars nowadays, so it was good that he did give back, and you didn't realize it at the time, you know?
Exactly. That was kudos to him, you know, and actually turned out to be very good actors.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Rodney Dangerfield too. He's one of the guys. He gave us the comics of our time, you know. Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, Roseanne Barr, Tim Allen. He gave them all their big break, you know. But even on the local scene, we do that, you know. The veteran comics, they give us, you know, Jerry Caruso. Both gave me and you our break coming up, you know. So it's kind of up to us now that we're becoming the veterans. We got to give back too. Do you think?
Exactly. You need that break, you know.
It's a business you got to give back to, yeah. Let's see. He tried his hand at singing, and I guess the one that we remember, he's actually released a few musical albums. The one we remember from our time is "Party All the Time." It was voted by VH1 one of the top 50 worst songs of all time. What did you think of it? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
He should have stuck to comedy, right?
The comedy, yeah.
But he went on. He did.
His impressions are great. I seen him do it like in Delirious. He actually did a little Elvis Presley set. And it was
sure, yeah. Ricky Martin, he did. I remember. Yeah, did a great Ricky Martin. Ralph Cramden there from the Honeymooners.
Oh, yeah. Ralph
he did him too. He had a bunch of them, yeah. But
being gay, yeah.
He also.
Yeah, it was funny.
He also sang on Michael Jackson's song there, where he appeared in one of Michael Jackson's videos too. So I mean, it wasn't just Party All the Time. He did a lot of singing too. I guess there was a gray area where he had a lot of legal issues. Okay, where he was sued for Coming to America by Paramount. So they said that he stole the script from Paramount. That was ideas they had there. He was also he wasn't arrested. He was pulled over for picking up a transgender hooker. And the hooker was arrested on charges, and Murphy wasn't arrested, and he just said, hey, I was just giving him a ride, but I mean, it really made him look bad. But do you think, I mean, we mentioned how much money the guy has, and once he got that much money, everybody wants a piece of it, so does that make him a target, do you think, or?
Oh, absolutely. He actually mentions that in Raw, how he's, because, obviously with the Beverly Hills Cops.
Oh, I remember that. Everybody sued me, right. I remember that line, right,
you know, he came off as a tough guy in Beverly Hills Cop, right?
Right, yeah.
But, you know, he was mentioning that he's in a club and some people started shit with him because, you know, and so they wound up turning this brawl at this club and people sued him. People that were actually, you know, turning into like a brawl.
Yeah, it was something with a light or something. And one guy said, my eyes were sprained from the bright light or something. They sued him for sprained eyes or something, but... Well, I remember Wayne Newton, the singer Wayne Newton, he said he had to file bankruptcy once, and it wasn't because he was financially bad, but he said he had so many people suing him that half of them, he didn't even know who they were. So, I mean, once you got money, there's always some scumbag trying to, you know, pin something on you to get a piece because they figure, oh, it'll be cheaper for a rich guy to settle out of court than it will be to go to court. I'll get something out of it, you know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, you become a target when you hit his status, I guess. I mean, we don't have that kind of money, so we can't relate to, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it would sue me anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. So we ain't got to worry about it, but, I mean, if you're Eddie Murphy, those are the kind of things you got to deal with. Let's see. Well, recent rumors, and we don't know if the rumors are facts, but they're going to make a movie about Richard Pryor's life, and that Eddie Murphy was going to play Richard's dad in the movie. That was rumored. Coming to America 2, that was rumored that they're going to do a second one of that. Beverly Hills Cop 4, that's been rumored for a while. I mean, what movie would you like to see him redo? What would you like to see another one of?
Well, if we can get back to his original, I'd like to see another Beverly Hills Cops movie.
I would, too. I thought the first two he was street smart, then the third one they tried to turn him into an action hero, you know? And it's like, he wasn't an action hero. He was a wise-ass street cop, you know, so I thought they got away from the character, you know?
Yeah.
So remember, he was at the theme park, and I remember he was, like, jumping around on top of Ferris wheels trying to save some people or something, you know, and it's like, all right, an action hero would do that. In the first two movies, he would have said, you know, fuck that, I ain't climbing on this thing, man, or something wise-ass, you know, I mean...
You shoot the guy, you know?
They really, yeah, they got away from what he did, but, now, here's the one I wanted to explore a little bit with you. It's been rumored, because a lot of people want to see him do it because they love this comedy, that he'd do another stand-up special this later in his career, and he said, you know, stand-up was like a platform to get him to do movies. Why would he go back to stand-up? But, I mean, you know, George Carlin, he was successful, but he did stand-up. I mean, Richard Pryor, he had a successful movie career, he did stand-up. But here's the thing is, if he does a stand-up album and it does good, it adds to his legacy. But if he does bad, it could destroy his legacy, so there's really no upside to him doing it. Now, what do you think about him putting out a stand-up album?
You know, I think he should do it.
Really? I mean, if it sucks so. Like some of his movies...
I don't think it'll fail.
Really?
I think he's got so much, you know, he's got so much material he can go back to, and I don't think it would fail. I think people would come out, and I think they would love it.
You don't think it's risky for him that if it sucked, it would kind of tarnish his career?
Nah, not at this point.
Yeah, you think he's big enough?
He's done so much good work that.
Yeah.
You know,
he did Party All the Time singing, and he came back from that, so why not, right? I mean, all right, we got to.
His brother came back, you know,
yeah.
As sad as he was, he came back, and that tarnished his career. I don't know, you know.
Who knows, right? All right, we got a few fans of the show. They write in some questions, so I'll read off some of the fan questions and just give your opinion on them. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, Anthony Brooks writes in, Aunt Bunny falling down the stairs.
What was that question?
No, Aunt Bunny falling down the stairs. He was commenting do you remember the routine he did, Aunt Bunny falling down the stairs?
No, I don't.
Oh, well most people, if they fall, it falls quick, but black people like to drag it out. It's like, oh, Lord Jesus, I'm falling down the stairs. I'm still falling, Lord Jesus, help me. I'm still falling, somebody help me. They just drag it out forever, he said.
Okay.
And I think it was Aunt Bunny with the shoe, too, right? If you mouthed off, she could hit you with the shoe from a mile away. Boom, boom, and smack you with her shoe.
Yeah. I think it was, Bunny. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
I think it was from Delirious, yeah.
Way back when. They're bringing all back memories, right? We grew up on them, and it's like now they're becoming memories for us, but,
Right.
Let's see.
Comes over and burns his backyard, goes in the barbecue.
Right. Moo Davis writes in, his African wife, Umbata. You remember that routine?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Where he had so much money, he didn't want somebody to, like, you know, a wife to divorce him and take half, so he went to Africa and found an African woman, Umbata, and brought her back to America.
Okay.
And then she went to sue him, and he's like, well, you had nothing. You were buck-ass naked on a zebra when I got you from Africa. I don't care, Eddie. I'm an American woman now. I want a half, Eddie. I want a half. I think that was the Carson routine you were talking about earlier. We talked about Carson. Carson's I want half, man. Half.
I was talking about that in Raw. Right. how unfair it is that they get half when they don't do nothing.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Steve Black here writes in, his Mr. T is Ralph Cramden. Do you remember that routine?
The Mr. T, yes. How was Mr. T? He actually did. He said one of his fears is that Mr. T would become gay.
That'd be something to see, right? I think it was Mr. Yeah. Ralph Cramden. He was like acting like Mr. T, talking to Norton. Norton, I'm gonna bend over now. When I do, start fucking or something.
Exactly.
Let's see.
Hey, Norton, I know you've been checking me out, Norton.
I know you've been watching me, and I've been watching you. I know you've been watching me.
Exactly.
Oh, too funny. Let's see. Pamela Arnold writes in simply his laugh, and I mean, his laugh was kind of like a catch thing for him because he had, I don't know. You remember his laugh? What it was? Something like that. I can't even imitate it, but it was a very distinctive laugh that he had. Jason Merrill writes in, I think the Ice Cream Man. You remember that routine? I think that was one of his most popular of all time.
Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, the Ice Cream Man.
Yep.
He's what? You ain't got no ice cream because you're on the welfare and your daddy's an alcoholic. Yeah, kids say the meanest shit. They don't give a shit, right?
Right. No, I guess it was. I forget that was in Raw where he started talking about the ice cream and he drops the mic on stage like it's a ice cream cone.
He dropped the ice cream.
He picks it up and he leaves it off, he's going to eat it, you know?
They don't give a shit, right? Let's see. Tracy Richard writes in. Now that's a fire. Remember the barbecue you mentioned earlier? The barbecue.
Yes.
What was it? His drunk uncle or something? He always.
His drunk uncle, yeah. He wants to start a barbecue. Yep.
But it was always the fire had to be 10 times the size of a regular barbecue. Now that's a fire right there.
Yeah. These guys, Eddie Murphy out there cutting down trees.
Yeah, right. And then there's a little kid sitting over there with third-degree burns eating a frank or something.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Ren Jones writes in herpes simplex 10 from Beverly Hills Cop. Do you remember that scene?
Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to bluff his way in. Like, why don't you go give him the message? I don't really want to tell him that, you know? Tell him he's got herpes simplex.
That was great.
That was the street smart guy we all loved right there to come up with a routine like that.
That's the Eddie Murphy you want to see.
That's the guy, right? Now, Lisa Morrissey mentioned this, and I thought the same thing. She said she saw Raw live in concert in Rhode Island, and she said a lot of married couples must have get into arguments on the car ride home. Because I remember that he tried to pit an argument about how men, you know, would do stuff to women. Like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about what you do. But it's like about cheating on me and stuff or whatever it was. But he kind of set it up where people would get in an argument on the car ride home, you know.
He did that. Yep, he did that. How he trying to start a fight.
Yeah, starting a fight between couples, you know.
Like all men do this, you know.
Yeah, let me hear all the men clap that are loyal to their girlfriends, you know, and then they look right. You better clap your ass off for this pussy motherfucker, okay? You better be clapping. Clap your ass off. Oh, I missed the guy. He's got to put out something good. All right, well, we end off every show with some trivia, Bill, so I'm going to give you 3 trivia questions about Eddie Murphy. We'll see if you can get them right. And I'll preface this by saying nobody does good at trivia. Usually everybody goes 0 for 3. A couple people have gone 2 for 3, 1 for 3. Nobody has ever gone 3 for 3 in the history of trivia. But if you do go 3 for 3, we mail you out a bottle of G Vegas Buffalo Sauce, our sponsor. Do you like buffalo sauce?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
You're a Philly guy, right? You watch the game, you gotta have some buffalo wings, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's do it here. Let's see how you do. Let's see. Nick Nolte was scheduled to perform on Saturday Night Live while Eddie Murphy was a cast member. This was shortly after they did 48 Hours.
Yeah, okay.
And Nick Nolte had to cancel out because he was sick, so Eddie Murphy took over the starring role. He's the only cast member in Saturday Night Live history to host the show while still being a regular cast member. He opened the show with this term, live from New York, it's... Then what did he say? Finish the sentence.
Oh, boy.
Because we know usually...
It's Saturday night.
Well, right. Usually live from New York, it's Saturday night. But he changed the opening because he was hosting. Do you know what he changed the opening to or no?
I do not.
All right. He said, live from New York, it's the Eddie Murphy Show. He was the only one.
Okay.
He changed that one. All right. On to the second one. Let's see. Now, this one, I'd have never got this one in a million years. I was checking this guy out, and I saw this, and I'm like, no way! I'm a fan of Eddie Murphy. I didn't know this about him. But let's see if you get it.
Okay.
In 1986, he was offered a part in a sci-fi blockbuster movie. Do you know what the sci-fi blockbuster movie was he was offered a role in?
86.
86.
Tell me it was Star Wars.
You were close. Star Trek, The Voyage Home.
Star Trek. Okay.
I would have never dreamed he was offered a role on Star Trek, and
I couldn't imagine that.
But he said the reason he turned it down was he was as big at Paramount at the time as Star Trek was, so he didn't want to, give to their franchise and take away from his own, But I'd have never guessed that about him. I can only imagine him on Star Trek. That would have been great. All right.
Exactly.
This is good. This is stuff we wouldn't have known anyway, so even if you don't get any right, we're getting information out. All right. Here's another one I would have never got until I looked up.
I would never guess that.
Now, he did some mainstream singing, as we did. He released a couple of his own albums, but he was a background singer for a legendary band from the 60s and 70s, and they still do music right up to today, but the original lineup. Do you know who the band is? The Legendary Band. That he sang background vocals for a legendary band. I'd have never got this in a million years.
Stuff that maybe something with Motown.
That would have been a good guess, but it was actually the Beach Boys. You believe that? He did
way.
background vocals on some of the Beach Boys songs. I wouldn't know. Things you didn't know about Eddie Murphy right there, man. All right.
Oh, my God. I did not know that.
I know. Star Trek, the Beach Boys, it's like when you think you know everything about Eddie Murphy, man. Who knew? That's great. Well, Bill, I want to thank you for being on Funny Like a Clown podcast. Before you go, being an Eddie Murphy fan, I mean, what would you want the other fans out there to know about Eddie Murphy?
Well, obviously they all know that he's a riot, but something that a lot of people did, I actually forgot myself. Eddie Murphy actually has 10 children.
Really?
10 kids, yep. And one of them happens to be with Mel B from the Spice Girls. I don't know if you knew that or not. But yeah,
really?
He has a daughter with Mel B. Yep.
Who knew?
Yep, some interesting little facts there, and I was surprised he had 10 kids. I'm like, wow.
Well, I remember he got divorced, and he was smart and signed a prenuptial agreement, but they said because he had kids, the prenuptial agreement, wasn't going to do much for him because you got to pay for the kids anyway. I don't know what was written into it, but
he had 5 kids with his wife, and everybody else was just like, wham, bam, thank you, man. Let's have a couple kids,
That's it, right? All right. Check it out, the legendary career of legendary comedian Eddie Murphy. Bill, good luck in your comedy career, and we hope to talk to you soon, okay?
Very good, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me on, my friend.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, comedian Bill Slemmer on Eddie Murphy, legendary career, and you don't know how big of a legend you are. There are some things, and we didn't get to everything on this. I'd say, you obviously heard Eddie Murphy, but if you're not from his time, go back, look up. We watched Delirious, we watched Raw, and he just said, he went back and watched it. It's like memories for us. Check this guy out, Google him. Check out some of the old stuff. Relive it. If you haven't seen it, live it the first time. If you have, live it again for the second time because he's so worth seeing, and it's such legendary stuff. And then, the legends never die. They live on forever. So thank you for listening to Funny Like a Clown podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. Until the next episode, I want to thank you guys. Our numbers keep growing each week. I want to thank all the listeners. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tune us in. Let's go big on the comedy thing because we love it. Because you know why? Laughter is the best medicine. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.